Empire Star needs you now. I'm surrounded by them. Comet, you can see my sadness, even with your simplex mind. Think multiplex and talk to Jewel. A message all over the place. Comet, you can be the hero. Learn and you'll save the day.
Hi, I'm Michael Leverts, and this is Fit to be Read. Empire Star by Samuel R. Delany is one of my favorite science fiction novellas of all time, and it is, of course, fit to be read. Empire Star is an adventure, a mind bender, and one of the all-time great time travel stories. I recommend Empire Star as a great introduction to the brilliant literary stylings of Samuel R. Delany and anyone looking for an imaginative take on sci-fi time travel storytelling. Empire Star is sure to rank high on my 2022 Top 210 Sci-Fi Reads episode. You'll also find on my channel reviews for Delany's Babel 17 and Nova. As with each review on this channel, the episode will begin with a spoiler-free review to introduce you to the novel. Following that summary, I'm going to announce a 3 likes and 3 dislikes segment that will include spoilers for those who've read the novel and want to hear a few more thoughts from me. Engage with me in the comment section. Let me know if you're a fan of Delany, if you're interested in his work, or if you think you might pick up Empire Star and give it a read. I feel like I want to rename this The Ballad of Comet Joe. One of the things that I really love about Delany are the unique and interesting characters that he creates, and that includes their names, and Comet Joe is no exception. Comet Joe is living on Reese, a simplex world of simplex-minded people orbiting a gas giant in the vicinity of Tau Ceti. It's fair enough to think of simplex as meaning simple-minded with limited perception, though the context does not carry the same negative or demeaning implications as simple-minded. It just is what it is. Joe's life is about to be turned upside down, or is it? Or has it already? Who knows? Delany takes the time travel theme seriously, and he has us wondering what is what, when is when. Joe very briefly interacts with an alien, a Tritovian from a crashing ship, who tells him to deliver a message to Empire Star. Working against Joe in this endeavor is that he is, of course, of a simplex culture and a simplex mind. He's never heard of Empire Star, what or where it is, and he doesn't know what the message is. Working in his favor and our favor, because they are the omniscient observer narrator of the story, the alien messenger has assumed a crystalline form. The messenger, Jewel, a Tritovian in crystallized form, is literally a crystal that Joe takes with him. We learn this right from the get-go. The crystallized Tritovian is a multicolored, multifaceted, and multiplex being. The Tritovian sustained injuries from the crash prior to meeting Comet Joe, and the transformation to crystallized form is apparently the only way to eke out any semblance of further existence. The crystallized form ensures Jewel's continued survival, but disallows any ability to volunteer helpful information or guidance. Because Jewel is along for the ride, we do have our omniscient observer narrator throughout. In order to leave Reese find his way to Empire Star and deliver his message, Comet Joe will need to navigate his own reality and levels of plexity to become complex and ultimately multiplex-minded. Think of plexity as relating to how one perceives the universe and time and the potential for paradox to exist in time and place, then sprinkle in an ability to be open-minded to the possibilities, and you, dear viewer, may also find yourself to think in multiplex terms, if you grok. Because there is plenty of reveals and discovery in this story to spoil, I'm going to direct the remainder of the spoiler-free summary to very broadly mentioning some of the interesting characters without giving anything away. This will serve to give you a little more entree into what this world Delany created looks like, and it can also be helpful to get you comfortable heading into the reading experience. First are the Ol. That's right, just Ol, spelled with 3 L's. Ols are beings of enormous power. They are enslaved. They must be, because they are the builders of the empire. They build societies, structures, ecosystems. Because of the necessity, their importance, and supposedly for their own sake, they must be owned. They are owned. They are protected. The great force of protection is sadness. The cost of owning an ul is extreme and crippling sadness. To even be in the presence of the ul is heartbreaking. To own an ul is a level beyond that. The level of crippling sadness is exponential with each additional ul owned. So imagine for a moment the terror that must befall the next character that I'm going to mention, Sanseverina. She owns 7 uls. What would possess her to do that? Well, this is an empire at war, and billions have died. She has 8 worlds and thousands upon thousands of civilizations, societies, ethical systems, you name it, to rebuild. She can't do that without the ul and all of the sadness cost that comes with it. Severina is also, depending on how you view time, Comet Joe's first teacher in the ways of advancing to a multiplex existence and greater understanding of the universe. We may or may not and have or have not seen Severina in other ways or forms in this story. She, however, is not his only tutor. Joe, for much of his quest, is in the company of Lump, short for Linguistic Ubiquitous Multiplex. Lump is an artificial intelligence. Interesting to note is that Lump's consciousness is based on an ul named Mule's Arenlide. I'm going to put that up on the screen here. It's an anagram that you might be able to work out. We also meet Lump as another character, Oscar, which isn't really a spoiler, but I mention it here to give you the idea that more than any one representation of a character is definitely possible, and it's absolutely part of the fun. There are a few other characters worth noting, but I'm going to leave them for you to discover. The last one that I'm going to mention here is Nitai Lee, a poet who, instead of following his plan to fly into the sun, finds interest in Comet Joe and Lump and stops for a minute to chat. Curious about Lee is that he seems intimately aware of all that Joe knows and has experienced. As complex or multiplex as this story and my summary may seem, the story is fun and you need not be sidetracked by anything while enjoying the ride. It's an amazing accomplishment by Delany to make all of the confusion work and leave many questions for us to wonder about while not at all slowing down the reading experience. The story is filled with metaphor. A more obvious is towards slavery, and some of the less obvious are ones that felt more personal and that I'll refrain from mentioning, as I believe that discovering them is a significant part of enjoying this novel. It certainly was for me. There are so many spoilery things that I want to talk about, so let's move on to that. Here now are my 3 likes and 3 dislikes, including spoilers, for Samuel R. Delany's incredible, fit-to-be-read Empire Star. Like number 1, Delany weaves the story effortlessly and the timing is all perfect. I'm especially drawn to Sanseverina and the different iterations of her in the form of the princess and Sharona. Dislike number 1, it will eat up your reading time because once I finish it, I have to pick it up and read it a second time to dwell on all of the stuff that I rushed past since it was such a fun read. Dislike number 2, I wanted to spend more time with Nitai Lee. I'm still not exactly sure I completely understand his character and how his knowledge of what everyone has experienced fits into the story. I assume it has to do with him having been through everything on a conscious loop, and therefore nothing can really keep his interest or his attention for very long. But I'm not very comfortable with that, so I'm going to have to think about that theory for a little bit longer. Dislike number 3, I get that I should understand that the ul build and create civilizations. I'd like a little more info on the how the hell do they do that question. Like number 2, Comet Joe is a great novella character. From the moment that we meet him with his brown skin and his long blonde waist-length braid, his simplex mind, and then to watch him grow and learn and then come to understand his message. Like everything else in the story, it is perfectly paced. Like number 3, the story is transcendental in a way. It's one of the few books where I look at a page and I'm immediately taken out of anything else that I'm doing or thinking. This is a power that Delany has over me in everything of his that I have read. There were metaphors that were personal to me and those that were not there for me. All of this ensures that I will reread Empire Star every so often. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Leverts, and this is Fit to be Read.